Hello my friends, my name is Operator Starsky, and the pro-Russian degenerates keep desperately dreaming to see the defeat of Ukraine already for the past 636 days. Amazing dedication won't help. Meanwhile, the desperate Russian supremacists sinking deeper in the suicidal war against the democratic world failed to supply their own citizens with gas. According to the Russian media, the governor of Baikal region, Igor Kobzev, days before the start of the winter season, assumed that it would be good to mobilize cargo transport to deliver gas to his fellow citizens. Guys, Russia was the world's leading producer of gas, and today, in 2023, they don't know how to supply their citizens with gas, except, of course, for the cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. But at the same time, they're buying artillery shells from North Korea because they need to kill the Ukrainians. On 7th of November in Moscow, a protest was held by the wives and relatives of the mobilized Russian invaders, calling their government to return their men from Ukraine. According to the scarce witnesses, the protest didn't last long, and the women were beaten up and arrested within minutes by the terror Russian police because there is no freedom of speech in the terrorist federation. Criticizing the Russian invasion in Ukraine considered a crime in Russia because opinion of the Russians doesn't matter. In June 2022, the Russian veteran of the Chechen War and top authority of the Ministry of Emergency Situations, Dmitry Chistykov, was sued for criticizing the Russian invasion. Luckily for him, he only received a fine. In July same year, another Russian authority, Alexei Gorinov, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for protesting against the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this year in Krasnoyarsk, a common Russian citizen, Igor Orlovsky, was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison for comparing Stalin to Hitler and criticizing the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Yesterday, more than 600 Russian invaders got demobilized by the Ukrainian defenders, apparently because the offensive potential of the toilet army was decimated due to the recent losses in tanks and armored vehicles. They switched to the tactics of using smaller groups to stealthily approach the Ukrainian positions. One of such attempts was filmed by this drone. Luckily, the Russians were put to sleep by the Ukrainian soldiers, who, unlike the terrorists, were equipped with the thermal scopes. Also, it was confirmed that the recent HIMARS strike on the Russian occupiers in Kumachovo village in Donbass terminated a fuckload of the Russian invaders, and despite the attempts of the Russian command to conceal this information, the Russians in the social media just couldn't keep silent. We are much grateful for the acquired information. Mr. Pistorius, the German Minister of Defense, arrived to Ukraine to assess the efficiency of the military aid and equipment provided to Ukraine by the German allies. Also, it was announced that Germany will deliver 4 IRIS-T systems, 20,155mm shells, anti-tank mines, and other equipment. Earlier, the US Secretary of Defense, Mr. Austin, also arrived to Kyiv to assure that the US will keep supporting Ukraine, no matter what the fucking terrorist Putin says.
The United States stands with Ukraine, and we're going to be with them for the long haul. This fight matters to the free world. The U.S. is always going to be on the side of democracy, and as the Ukrainians continue to show grit and strength in the face of Putin's aggression, we've rallied allies and partners to stand up to Russia and to make progress toward a brighter future, because that's what American leadership is all about. And our resolve is stronger than ever.
It was also announced that $100 million worth military aid will be delivered by the US to support our country. Also, Hungary handed over 100 artificial lung ventilation devices to Ukraine worth more than 3 million euros. The equipment will be disseminated among the hospitals and clinics starting this week. Thank you so much to our Hungarian supporters. Brave Bulgaria decided to stop importing the Russian crude oil in March 2024, 6 months earlier than planned, in order to break any potential schemes that could be established over this time by the terror Russian in order to evade sanctions. Meanwhile, at the biggest Middle Eastern air and space exhibition, the Dubai Air Show 2023, the Russian representatives successfully signed 0 contracts. The terror Russian chief of the defense exports, Alexei Mikheyev, desperately called the visitors not to ignore their production, but in the end of the day it didn't work. At the same time, companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing and Airbus signed $67 billion worth of contracts at the exhibition. Speaking of the Russian cringe. With that, I wish you all a beautiful day. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.